Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar, Perfect Project Management. Okay, thank you for joining today. Who are we? We are Bitrix24 Gold Partners Interface. My name is Sam Connor, a sales engineer here at Interface, and we're based in the UK, in the US and Hong Kong, and we offer a full range of services to help you with Bitrix24. Starting off with pre-sale support, so we can discuss your requirements in detail and really evaluate if Bitrix24 would be a good solution for your business. If it is, we can then implement the system for you. We can set it up with your specific requirements. For a self-hosted edition, we offer our own hosting services for the system, and we can provide training on all the areas of Bitrix24 and provide ongoing dedicated support to really help you get the most out of the system. And if you're new to Bitrix, if you come to the Perfect Project Management webinar today to understand more about what Bitrix24 is, it is a collaboration suite of well over 35 different tools to help you in managing your business. And specifically today, we're going to be looking at how we can manage tasks and projects in Bitrix24. There are over 8 million organizations that use Bitrix around the world, and the system is available as a cloud-based solution and also a self-hosted solution. And prices start from $19 per month for a commercial cloud license and just under $1,500 for a self-hosted lifetime license. Okay, so today's webinar, Perfect Project Management. And first of all, it's a good question to understand why would you use Bitrix24 to manage your projects. So Bitrix24 allows you to create an unlimited number of projects in the system. And there are the abilities to invite specific groups of people into those projects, and they can be secure closed areas if you're dealing with very maybe secure information in those projects. There's very good task management features where we can manage and assign tasks to users in the system, and we can run automation on those tasks to streamline our project management processes. We'll have a look at how we can automatically create projects in the system so you can streamline any repetitive types of project administrations that you would want to automate. And we'll look at the different types of ways we can look at the tasks in the system, such as through Gantt charts and the different reporting features. And another real benefit of Bitrix24 is the ability to invite external users into a project. So what you can do is you can invite your customers or your suppliers into specific projects to work with you and to collaborate with you. And we'll have a look at that later on in the webinar. Okay, so the first section we're going to look at today in the webinar are the project groups. So how we can create a project in Bitrix and all of the different features that are available inside a project in the system. Okay, so we've just gone into one of our Bitrix systems here, and the first thing to mention, where you go to see all of the projects that you are associated with, you want to go into what we call our work groups module. Okay, and in this area, you can see all of the different projects and groups that you are associated with. So I can see all of those in the system here, and I can click into any of those to access that specific group in the system. You've also got a filtering tool here, so if you wanted, you may have hundreds of projects that you're associated with, so you can easily filter and search in the system to find that specific project. And to create a brand new project, we can go to the Create button here. Okay, and that then opens up the different types of groups we can create. And just to point out the differences here, so we have work groups, and further down here we have projects. And the key difference between a work group and a project is that inside a project you can have a start date and an end date. So you can have some time parameters on a project. And if you create and manage tasks inside a project, the task has to have a deadline that is before or on the deadline of the project. So you couldn't have a task that goes past the end date of a project. Whereas in a work group, you don't have to have any time parameters. So it can just be a continuous area, such as maybe for a department to bring a group of people together. And you can create different types of work groups and projects. So first of all, you can have an open project. And this is where you can invite in specific people, and anybody in your Bitrix system can then access that project. So it's an open area. Anybody who is in your Bitrix24 system can access that project. You can also create a private project, and this is where the project manager will invite in specific people to work on that project. And it's an invitation only project. So you will be given an invite to be able to access that project. So it is a secure, closed area to manage projects. So this is good if you have maybe private information, you don't want everybody to have access to this project. And you can also create an external project. And an external project is where you can invite in external users, such as your customers or suppliers, those people who are not internal people on your Bitrix24 system. So that's really useful. Say if you do have a customer and you want them to collaborate on that specific project with you, you could invite them into an external project. Now you need a commercial license to be able to use that feature, and with that you can create an unlimited number of external users in the system. So if I wanted to go into here and create a private project, this then opens up the project creation page. So first of all, I can give this project a title. So I can give that a title. You can also give it a description underneath, so when people are invited in, they can get more understanding of what this project is about. Okay, you can also upload an image. So if you want an image to be displayed where people go to get into the project, you can add that there. And you can see here we can have that project start and end date. So I'm going to add those dates into the system. So this means any tasks associated in this project need to have a deadline no later than the 30th of April. And then following we've added the dates, we can then add the people who are going to be working in this project. So first of all, you can add a project owner. So this is the project manager. You can then also have a middle layer of project management in here. So we can create moderators. So I can select from our users here who is going to be part of our moderator team. And then I can invite in all other users who are going to be working on this project. You can also create project subjects. So you can use this to filter through all your projects. So I can select a subject for this particular project. And then you can turn on and turn off different features for your project. So this is a really useful feature in Bitrix that enables you to really customize every single project that you create in the system. So a really important feature is tasks. So you can turn on the task management feature so you can then store and manage tasks in the system. You might want to turn on the calendar feature so you can store a calendar in the project. And we'll go through these inside a project shortly. You have the drive option so you can store documents and files. There is a chat feature so you can instantly message and chat with your members of the project. There's the discussions, so this is where you can create static discussion forum pages. There is a conversation module, so you can create conversations and topics in a kind of an activity board. You could add a photo gallery. You can create lists. We'll have a look at lists later on. This is where you can store tables of information, such as maybe expenses. You can create wiki pages. There's also, you can create a knowledge base, so where you could store articles or information for quickly accessing to research any types of details, maybe specifically to that project. And you can also the application feature. So this application is where it connects with the App Store, so you can actually integrate third-party applications into your project. Okay, so then I could create that project. So I'm going to turn on a few different features here, and I'm going to create that project in the system. Okay, so we can see we've got a notification now, and it then opens up that project. So it's brought through those different modules that I turned on in the system, and it's also invited all of those different people into the project. So you can see all of those in the system here. So that's how you can create a project. Now let's have a look at a project that's already been worked on and look at some of those features in the system. Okay, so we're inside a project now that's live and we're currently working on in the system. On the right hand side, you can see all of the different features about the project. So we can see the project owner, the start and the end dates, and all the other users who are associated to this project. Now, one thing to mention, if you wanted to invite new people into this project once it's been created, you can go into the invite project area and you can then either add the employee, or if it's an external user, you can add their email address into here and it will send out an invitation for them. And we can also set permissions. And this is really useful because you can set permissions for every single project. So inside here, I might want to set who's able to create tasks inside the project. So I might say only the owner, for example. So you're able to customize the permission structure on all different aspects of the project. Okay, so that's some of the administration sides of the project. Here we've got our activity feature. So this is our kind of conversation section. So this is your own kind of project intranet board. So it will show you all of the posts that any user in the project has submitted. And on any of these posts, you can you can add your own comments back. So it's really useful for collaboration with other people. And at the top here, you can add messages. So you might want to send out a message to the rest of your project team. So I can send that message out to the rest of the project team. They can receive a notification about that. And they can then, as I say, they can post their own comments back. So it's a great way to collaborate with everybody else on the project. We also have our task feature, and obviously this is a critical area of a project. So you can store and manage tasks inside the task module. And we can see tasks in a variety of different ways. So inside here, I can see our tasks based on a deadline view. So you can see here what tasks are due to date, so what maybe needs to get worked on in the project. And you can click into any of these tasks and it will open up that task page. And inside the task page, you can see all of the details and information about that specific task. And you can see further down here, we've got some checklists. So you can create checklists with items that need to be completed and they can be ticked off inside the task. And on the right hand side, you can see all of the details about this task. So we can see the start and the end date. You can see who's working on this particular task in the system. And you can also record time on a task. So inside here, I can record that time in the system. And we've also got a conversation area. So within every task page, you're able to channel your communication. So it's very easy to, specifically route into any conversations. You can go straight into that task page and see all of the communication log on that specific task. And within here, you can also attach documents as well. So you could store everything about that task directly in the task page. And when you want to create a new task, you can go to the new task button and you can then fill out all of the information about the task in here. Very similar to when you create a project. So you can add the title, the description. You can upload any documents or information about the task. And here is the checklist area. So I can add different items that need to be completed. And once you've populated that task page, you can save it down here as a template. So I could quickly go into here and find that particular type of task I want to populate, and it will pull through all of that information with the checklist and so on. So it can save you a lot of time in the system. So that's the deadline view. As I say, there's different ways you can view tasks. So we can see this in a list view. You've got a filtering system. So if you wanted to filter down into any specific types of tasks, maybe based on who's responsible for the task, you can filter into here to find any specific details in the system. You also get your own planner view. So this is your own personal Kanban board view to manage on any of your tasks. There's also a calendar display and a Gantt chart view as well. So this is quite a nice way to see what tasks are where in the project. And the final display is the Kanban view. So in here we can see the different stages that we can progress a task through. And these stages are customizable, so you can add your own stages into here. So this gives you an overview of where each task is inside the project. In a short while, we'll have a look at the automation available in tasks. Okay, so in the project here, we've also got a calendar. So you can add a calendar specifically for each project. So this is really useful if you want to manage any particular events associated to this project. And again, with this feature, you could enable this for your external users so they could have access to the calendar in the system. And I could create brand new events in here as well. Okay, and moving on, we've got the drive area. So in here, we can store documents and files specifically associated to the project. And I think this is a really useful feature because it just allows you to really simplify where any details and documents are going to be stored. You can save them all into here. And what you can then also do is we can set permissions. So it may be only certain people in this project are able to access this specific document. So inside here, the owner has full access, and we're allowing the moderators to have read access on this document, but nobody else in the project would be able to see that document in the system. So you can set permissions on every file and folder that you add into the drive space. We can also run business processes. So it could be, for example, when this document gets uploaded, you might send it to 2 people to authorize and to approve before other users in the system are able to access that document. So within the documents in the drive space, we can also run approval processes. And again, in the system here, you have a filtering tool, so you can easily filter through all of your documents that you have saved in the drive space. And we'll have a look shortly at an Extranet user. We've given access to specific documents in here so they can see certain features in the drive space. Okay, and we've also got lists inside this project. So lists are really ways of storing tables of information. So for example, in this particular project, we have an expenses list. So I can go into here and add a new expense into this system. I could maybe add an amount, choose when that expense is to be occurred, and I'm going to save that into the list field. Okay, so that's then been added into the system. And what you're also able to do is run business processes on these. So you can see here the status of these expenses. Some have been approved, some have been rejected. And I could filter through this. I might want to look at all of those that are currently being pending. And based on this information, what you can do, so that's the one we just added into the system, we can run what we call a business process. So I can go into the workflow and I could then send this to the project manager to either approve or reject. So you can create your own workflows off lists. So based on this, it's being sent to the owner to either approve or to reject. And if it's rejected, we're going to receive a notification about that. Otherwise, it's going to be approved in the system. So you can run your very own workflows off lists in the project. Moving on, we also have the chat feature as well. So inside here, you have the ability to instant chat with the whole project team. You can also do video calling and voice calls as well. So I might actually just want to have a conversation with a specific person inside the project. So I could open up an individual chat here and I could access maybe and do a video call with a user in the system. Okay, so that's a look at one individual project. And if you just go into the task and project area, you're able to then see all of the different tasks that are associated across all the different projects you're working on. You're also able to see if you're maybe an owner of these projects, you can see an efficiency score. So you're able to, based on how many tasks are completed within deadline, you can see how well your project is performing in the system. So the task and project area gives you an overview of all of the projects that you are associated with. Okay, so that's a look at project groups. Please add any questions into the question box and we can run through those for you. Okay, so is it possible to set up automation from the CRM? So when the deal is won, the system can create a private project and inviting external members. So we're going to have a look in a second at how you can automate a project in the system. So yes, you'd have to have a certain type of license, so either an on-premise or a professional cloud, but you can then create projects automatically in the system. And we're going to have a look at that in a second. Okay, another question: will we be going over CRM and telephony? We won't be covering telephony or really the CRM in much detail today. We're currently looking at the project management tools today. In a few weeks, there will be both a telephony webinar and a CRM webinar, so where we'll specifically look at those areas of the system. So we'll be able to go through that with you in those webinars. Okay, so the question, can an Extranet user add time to a task? Yes, they can. So with an Extranet user, and we're going to have a look at an Extranet user shortly, that you can give them the permission to have all access to any type of features inside that project. So where they could create tasks, they could collaborate with you, and they could assign time to a task as well. Okay, is there a way to create a project as a template? There's no way to create a template of a project as such, no. What you can do, you can create, obviously, as we've looked at, you can create task templates. The only real feature in terms of, I guess, if you're wanting to have a similar project, is you can copy a project. So I can go into here and I can then create a new title for the new project in the system, and I can then copy specific features from a ready-made project that we already have in the system. So it doesn't have a project template, but you can copy and pick and choose which features from an already existing project you would want to copy. Okay, so that's a look at how you can copy a project. Now let's have a look at, and one of those questions was around automation, so how you can automatically create a project in the system. So we can use what we call business processes to streamline and automatically create a project inside the system. And we can do this from inside the CRM. So it is one of those questions mentioned, if a deal is won, if you've maybe won a new tender on a project, you might then want to create a brand new project in the system and bring a group of people together. So I'm going to show you this from a company section, but it would be possible to create this process using the workflow designer at the deal stage when the deal is won. So it would be possible to do it from there as well. But for example, say if we're in one of our companies in the system and we've just won a new sale with this organization, we might want to create a new project to bring a group of people together to start creating and working on specific tasks that need to now start being processed. So what we can do is I can go to our workflow section here, and I have a client activation to create a project. So I can open up the create project workflow, and it then opens up a form where I now need to enter specific information. So I could add this information into here, and you can customize this form. So you might want certain types of fields and details to be added here. It is completely customizable. So what I can do is I'm going to give this project a name. So I'm going to call it TechCo Project 2021. I'm then going to select a manager who's going to be responsible for this project. I'm going to choose a project type as well. So maybe based on this type here, you could then have certain types of tasks that are going to be created. So you could choose by date or type period here, and it could then create specific types of information inside that project. So I've added my details into here, and following that, I'm going to start that process. So we can see now it's automatically created a process in the system. And I was made responsible as the manager for this particular project. So I now need to go into my workflow section and give access to actually initiate the estimated completion date. So I've gone into my workflow section. It's made me responsible for this project, and it's asking for some additional details. So I now need to give an estimated completion date for this project. So I can add that into the system. And once I've added that detail, I have the option here to accept or decline the project. I'm going to accept it. Okay, you can see now we've received that notification, so the project has been created. And if we go into our work group section, you can see TechCo Project 2021 has now been created. And it's brought through specific groups of people here. So it's brought through everybody who we want to be associated to this project. It's brought through all of the different features that we want to have inside this project. And if I go, say, into our task module, it's automatically created those tasks in the system that we can now start working on. So this is a really useful feature because it gives you an ability to create a very solid structure for your project. So it can automatically create every feature. It can bring the correct people into the project. It can create all the tasks that need to be worked on. So if you've got, when you win a new deal, for example, if you have, say, repetitive tasks that need to be completed, you could run a workflow like that to initiate the project and get it moving forward very quickly. And if we just have a look at how we actually created that project, let's have a look at the back end of where that process was created. So let's just go into our company section, and we've got the create project workflow. And I just want to explain, really, this is the process designer. So this is where you can build out your very own custom processes. So what we did was we inputted all of the information about the project, and that then created the workflow. So it sent us the notification, it created the work group, and then it added all of the different tasks into that specific group. So we saw how we had 3 different tasks, and we then finished off that workflow. But in here, you could fully customize this. So we've got different action blocks on the right-hand side. So you could go into here and add different features. You might want to send an email, for example. So you could customize this workflow to your specific requirements using the action blocks on the right hand side. Okay, so that's a look at how we could automatically create a project in the system. And we also mentioned when we were creating that project earlier on how you can run task automation as well. So let's have a look at how you can manage and create automatic roles on tasks. Okay, so we've gone back into that project we were looking at earlier on. And if I just go back into the task section, one feature you can enable is the ability to run automation. Now, this feature is available on any on-premise edition and the professional cloud edition. So within here, what you can do is you can run automatic actions at every stage that a task is at inside the project. So if I just show you in here, for example, in this BizTech project, in here if I just go into our Kanban display, you can see here the different stages that a task will go through in this particular project. Now those stages are fully customizable. So I could add more stages into here. I can change the name, the colors, and so on. That's because I have administrator rights. So not everybody in the project would have the access rights to do this. But within here, you can create those stages and you then progress the task through those different stages in here. And at each of those stages, you can then run automatic actions and activity. So inside here, for example, when we're in progress, we're actually going to send an email to the responsible person for this task to make them aware. So within every stage here, when the task hits that specific stage, we can run specific types of activity. So for example, we might want to change who is responsible for this task at a certain stage. That could be a very common automation. So for example, if we get to the testing stage, we might want to change who is responsible. You might want to, for example, be notified when the task hits a certain stage in the system. We could also, for example, create a change of status. So within a task, you could have a status, and that could automatically change when the stages change here. So with this, it's really useful because you can automatically then create activity as you progress the tasks through those different stages. And you can also run triggers. So a trigger will actually automatically update the stage of the task for you. So rather than you manually moving that task, you can actually have it do that automatically using one of these triggers. So for example, if a task becomes overdue, so if the task has a deadline and the task is still not completed by that deadline, it then becomes overdue. And because of this, we're going to automatically update the stage of that task to urgent. So that will be automated because we've created a trigger. And at that urgent stage, if we go down into our automation rules, we're automatically changing who is responsible for that task in the system. So for example, it may go to a more senior manager to get that task back on track because now it is overdue. So that's a really good example how you can blend triggers and automation rules to really help you streamline your tasks inside a project. Now, those stages that you can see here, you can customize those stages for every single project in the system. So we saw that project we just created. I can go into there and you can see those stages are different. So I can customize those stages and I can create very simple automation rules in here specifically for that project. So the stages and automation you run are completely customizable for every single project that you have inside the system. Okay, so that's a look at the automation processes on tasks. Okay, can we create a task for a group or department, not just for a person? Because people can change groups or departments. So You can't assign a task to an overall department, no. So when you go into, say if I went to create a brand new task, what you would have to do is you can create someone who is responsible for the task. So it can open up here and I can choose who is going to be responsible first of all. Now it pulls through the department structure, but you have to have a certain person who is responsible. So you wouldn't have a whole department who is responsible for a task. You would have a specific person who is responsible. But then you can add participants and observers. So you could then go into here and then add from that specific department everybody. So you could have each person then associated to that specific task. But no, you can't just go into here and say select the IT department. You have to have a specific person who is responsible, and you can add multiple participants onto a task. Okay, can we print out our project report? I guess we need to know what do you mean by project report? Do you have a certain type of report that you create in the system? In terms of within the projects, as we mentioned, there is an area where you can see the overall efficiency score for every project in the system. Now, this information in here you can't export. It doesn't have an export feature. You've got a print option at the bottom, so you could print this page. And there is also a report wizard. So this allows you to create your very own reports from scratch. So if I go into here, you can give a report a name and a description. You can add a reporting period for that project. And then from there, you can select all of the different columns of information you would like to add to this particular project. You can then create a filter. So maybe you want to filter on a specific type of project. And you can also create a chart as well. So if you wanted to give it a visual representation, you could add a line, a bar chart or a pie chart. And once you've created that particular report, any report in this system here, you do then have the ability to create that as an Excel database. So you can export that report into Excel. So anything you create in this section in the report wizard, you can export out of the system. Okay, so please add any other questions into the window and we'll run through those throughout the sections of the webinar. Okay. Okay, so moving on to look at some of those extranet features. We mentioned quite a lot about the extranet throughout the session today. And the extranet allows you to invite your third parties, your customers, into specific projects in Bitrix24. So they don't have access to any other areas of the system, not like the CRM. They would have access to the specific projects that you have invited them into. Now, we're going to look at some of the benefits of a self-hosted later on. One of the benefits is with a self-hosted edition is we can brand up the Extranet portal. So where that user logs into, it could be branded with your corporate branding rather than the Bitrix24 branding. So that's just something to bear in mind if you are thinking of using the external feature. But with this, you can add as many external users into a project as you like. And let's just have a look now at what an external user display would look like. So this is Tara Green, one of our external users in the system. You can see on the left-hand side, their menu is a lot more restricted. All they do is have access to the particular project that they have been invited into. But you can see in their feed area here, that comment we added earlier on, they can add their like, they can add a comment back on any of this. So it's a great way for them to collaborate with the internal team in Bitrix. And if I go into that particular project, you can see this is the project we were looking at earlier on. It looks very similar because we've given the external user access to a lot of the same features in the system. So they can go into here and add messages. They can go into the task area and see all of the tasks that they are associated with. They can view all of those tasks in the different displays. And let's just go into one of those tasks. And you can see that task page, they can see all of the same details. They can communicate and collaborate. So really an external user, as long as you give them the right permissions, as we looked at the start, where you can create permissions in a project, they have really exactly the same functionality inside a project as an internal user. And let's just go to that drive space as well, for example. You can see in here, the drive area, they do have limited access. So compared to the internal team where there was a lot more folders and files, we've given them access to specific documents and folders in here. And we could give them permission to upload information. So that's quite a common feature where you want your external users to add information into a project. They could upload documents and information. And we've also got the chat system so they can communicate with everybody else in the project. So it's a really useful way to collaborate, not just on tasks, but through documents, through chats in the system. And you can also use the mobile app. So for a chat, for example, you don't have to log into the Bitrix web portal here. You could use the Bitrix mobile app to have a conversation with the rest of the project team or a specific person, so you could communicate with them. Okay, so you can see here all of the different functionalities an external user can have. Okay, so if I have a document in a project group, any function for request for signature, that particular document required a signature. Sorry, I'm not quite sure exactly what you mean by that. Are you wanting to say run a business process? Bitrix24 doesn't have an e-signature feature as standard, so you wouldn't be able to sign a document inside Bitrix24. You can run approval processes. If you create a business process off a document like we saw, you can create a first level approval or a two-layer approval directly in the system. Okay, just in terms of the external user feature there, we've had a question, can a user be notified by email? So yeah, that's a good question. So if we just go back into our Bitrix system, you can set notifications in basically 3 different ways. So you can have a notification directly in the Bitrix system, like we've seen today. You can receive a notification via an email, and you can also receive a notification via the Bitrix mobile app, so as a push notification. I think that's a really useful feature I use heavily. Having that push notification on your mobile phone, it enables you to quickly keep up to date. If there's any chats, for example, you can quickly join into that conversation using the push notification on the mobile app. So there's 3 different ways here that you can set and route notifications. Okay, briefly, just to touch on the self-hosted edition, some of the additional benefits that you have. We mentioned about the external user feature where they can log in and access projects. With the self-hosted edition, you can brand up that portal. So you can strip out the Bitrix24 branding and add your own corporate branding. And that's important for some people. They want to have their own branding on the system. So with the self-hosted edition, you're able to do this. There's also advanced automation rules, so we have access to the source code, so we can build additional and new automations in the system. You can also customize pages, so if you wanted to edit pages in the system, with that source code, you're able to edit those. And if you wanted to, you could also build your own dashboard. So you might want to pull information and create your own dashboards. So the self-hosted edition, if you have some of those types of requirements, it's probably the solution to look at because of the additional layer of functionality that you can build into your system. Okay, and here are some of the additional webinars that will be coming up soon. So I know we had a question around the CRM and telephony. We've not really covered that today as this is the perfect project management webinar, but we will have webinars coming up very soon, specifically focusing on the CRM and also the telephony features in the system. And in summary today, we've seen how we can create our own groups to manage all of our different projects in the system. We've seen how we can create tasks in every project and able to run automation on those tasks to streamline the activities for every stage of a task. We've seen how we can collaborate extensively, not just with our internal teams through instant messaging, video and telephony, adding comments onto tasks, but also the ability to use those collaboration tools with our external users as well. And we've seen how we can automate the creation of projects in different areas of the system, such as the CRM, so we can streamline the creation of our projects. And we've looked at the different areas of the system for reporting, from tasks to using the report wizard tool to create your very own reports in the system. Thank you all for joining the webinar today. I hope you found this useful, and I hope you're able to join us for future webinars as well.